adventure is a relative term, and it's just about finding where that relativity is for an individual and delivering on that. There's something about the intense cold and the absolute brutal nature of Antarctica. On the Tasman Sea, even if you're middle of the ocean, 1,000 kilometers away from land, a beautiful day on the ocean is a beautiful day. You know, your shirts are off, you're splashing around, you're having good fun, and it gives you a bit of respite from the intensity of a big expedition. Down in Antarctica, you just do not get that respite. It's constantly windy. Every time you stop, your whole body freezes up, and it just wears you down over the month you're down there. Probably the biggest thing to take time to recover was our mental aptitude, and for about 12 months, we were absolutely exhausted, we were constantly fatigued, our short-term memory was shot, and it took a good 12 months for that to come back to normal. So it's an incredible, and something these big expeditions have taught me, how much more you can achieve when a team is all aligned and focused on the same objective. You know, Jonesy and myself, we're not polar explorers. We don't have a massive, huge resume of life in those kind of environments. But what we were able to do was pull a team together across 17 different countries that were experts in different facets of our planning work. We pulled them all together and we aligned them on this dream to try and pull off this first unreported return journey. And by having them all around us and then supporting one another, we were able to push so much further than we could have pushed on our own. And it's just so important, and I guess that power of one is so important to work as a team in achieving an objective. And I had a client a couple of months ago that was staying at a beautiful 6-star resort, and I said, "Oh, how did you sleep last night?" And he told me a story about, "Oh, look, I set my air conditioning to 20 degrees Celsius, and at 20 degrees Celsius it was too cold to have the blankets on, and too hot to not have anything on to sleep well, and the pillow wasn't quite like I normally have at home." And he kind of went on and on for about 5 minutes about this beautiful 5-star hotel. And I guess these trips make you take all those beautiful little things that we have in our lives for granted and just appreciate them. And so on the Tasman Sea, our water desalinator after 10 days out at sea carked it. So for a good 60 days out at sea, we need to pump our water for 2 to 3 hours just to get our fresh water for the following day. And so just going to a tap now and being able to pour a tap and get a glass of water, it's the best bloody thing in the world. So when I got back from the Tasman crossing, Jonesy and I got a few inquiries to do some speaking engagements. And we never even knew about this world that you guys all exist in. And so we're like, sweet, we're going to do a few talks, and then within a couple of months we'll be old news and we'll just better get back to our day jobs. And so over the last 10 years that business has built, and I've had the opportunity to speak to close to 400,000 people now at conferences all around the world. And then where my real passion and my real love is actually getting teams out of the conference room, out of this formal environment, into adventure activities themselves. And so these days I now take corporate groups and leadership teams out on adventure-based programs. And what I find just amazing is by pushing a team or an individual out of their comfort zone in a controlled environment, the growth that you start to see from that individual and from that team, the elevated levels of trust and collaboration are just absolutely inspiring. And that's what drives me now. I love building teams in these environments and getting people to experience some of the benefits that adventure has given me on their scale. So depending on the group and whether it's incentive-based or development kind of program, some groups we have flying up in helicopters, celebrity chefs cooking for them, so we cater for that level of the market. But then we also, depending on their fitness levels, we might take them abseiling, canyoning, climbing. After skiing 2,200 kilometers alone with Jonesy in Antarctica, to see that little black dot on the horizon as we got closer and closer to it, and to see that it was Alex Gamby, the Norwegian, waiting for us, it was just the most beautiful thing. You know, when we crossed the Tasman Sea, there were thousands of people waiting for us on this beach. Here it was a stadium of silence, but it was so much more powerful. No one else was around us apart from this one crazy Norwegian. And to ski across that finish line all together and experience that moment as a team was something that I'll just never ever forget. So I've always been inspired by people that have been prepared to step away from the norm, to step away from what's expected of them, and to pursue their passions and loves in life. And as a kid, I was absolutely fascinated by the golden age of adventure back in the turn of last century, when no one had stood at the South Pole, and all these amazing explorers. There was Scott, there was Armiston, there was Shackleton, there was Australia's very own Mawson, all vying for these amazing things down in Antarctica. And I've got to say, Mawson and Shackleton particularly absolutely blew me away in terms of their leadership qualities and their ability to manage people in the most hostile environments on Earth. Absolutely blown away by them, and aspire to be as much like them as I can. I guess I've been speaking now for close to 10 years all across the world, and something that's really close to Jones in my heart is just being authentic, being real, and just being normal human beings. And one of the things that always frustrated me when I read all those amazing books of polar explorers back in the day, it always felt that it was the veneer kind of shadowing or just kind of covering up what they were really feeling, what they were really thinking, and what was going through their minds. And so when I came to do my trips, I really wanted to show some authenticity and some transparency in what actually goes on a big trip. And a lot of it isn't pretty. A lot of it is really ugly. And a lot of the way I behave as a human being, I would wish I could have behaved better. But that's how it was, and that's kind of what we want to portray to people. And I think that's what resonates with a lot of people. They see that honesty, and I'm not saying that it's good or bad, it just was, and that's how I'm portraying it. And I think particularly in Australia, there's no room for arrogance, and there's no room for that veneer, and you just want to show people what happened and let them take away what they want from it. So in these environments, the stress of the situation and the fact that you're so far out of your comfort zone, the easiest person it is to take out your frustration, your anger, your exhaustion is your best mate. I mean, he's the only person that's going to respond to you. The wind and the snow and the rocks aren't going to do anything. And so you often have the fights over the stupidest little things, but it was kind of just a pressure release. I know down in Antarctica, the biggest fight we had was one morning when Jonesy made my cup of tea wrong. And it had nothing to do with the cup of tea. It was just the fact that, we were feeling terrible. We were absolutely smashed. Our progress was abysmal. Didn't look like we were going to pull off the whole thing. And it was just a release of the stress of the situation. So one of the things I absolutely love about these adventures, 2, 3, 4 months out there, it condenses about 30 years of emotions into like this intense 2 or 3 month period. And so your highs are higher than you'll ever experience in normal day-to-day life. Same with the lows, and you're just rocketing between the two. Often within one day, you'll experience the biggest highs and the biggest lows you've experienced in your entire life, just because those environments are so intense that it just completely consumes you when you're actually down there. So those lows, when you fall down a crevasse or there's sharks up against the kayak, they're pretty intimidating. But equally, the highs of seeing a beautiful sunset in the middle of the Tasman Sea or reaching the South Pole equally trumps that. So your emotions do an absolute roller coaster. Absolutely love Australia. As a kid, I never went on overseas holidays. Mum and Dad was bundle me and my brother and sister in the car, and we'd go camping for a couple of weeks. We're out into the deserts. It is such a diverse country, and every corner of the globe that I've gone to, whether it be high up in the Arctic, down in Antarctica, mountain ranges across the world, I always dream of just coming back home to Australia, heading up to the Blue Mountains where I live now, getting on the rock faces up there and sharing that place with my family now, with my kids.